you for that, Keith. It's good to have that. I suppose that's why I always give them the benefit of the doubt slightly on the timings at the moment, because Zoom does test everybody's abilities slightly. Anyway, let's after Councillor Finch's good comment, let's
yes.
kick off. So thank you. Welcome all to this Accountability Board meeting, and my first as chair. Thank you all for attending, and thank you for agreeing to extend the meeting. I know it is a rather long meeting, but actually, as you can see, there's a great deal happening at the moment, and there's a great deal that we need to get through, hence why we've extended it. But I do think it's really vital that we make kind of really good and informed decisions. So, and by having slightly longer time to do this meeting, that will hopefully enable us to do that. But having said that, I would ask for people to be concise in their comments, and also particularly for officers when they're reporting, to be as precise and concise as they can be, please. Otherwise, we're never going to get through everything. In terms of general housekeeping notes, I'm sure you all know now the Zoom etiquette, but if you're not speaking, please could you turn your microphone onto mute. The meeting will be recorded, as you know, and members of the public are able to attend this meeting and listen into this meeting, as are members of the press and officers. And I think if you look on the participants list, you'll see there's many more than just who you can see on the screen. When you're voting, please could you raise your hand physically? We've had some issues, I think, with the kind of remote hand raising. So actually we'll just do it all so we can see everybody. And then officers will tell me whether there's an agreement. And if you'd like to speak, also, if you could possibly raise your hands either physically or virtually, that would be great. And I'll try to keep an eye on the screen, and I'll try to keep an eye on the virtual hand raises too. Given that it's such a long meeting, we will try to have a comfort break, probably around item 14 or just after. So I think that's it from a housekeeping point of view. In terms of apologies, we've had apologies from Simon Cook and Councillor Gledhill, who's being represented by Councillor Hebb. Welcome to your first meeting, I believe. Thank you for coming. So I think that's it in terms of welcome and apologies. So I'm going to go on to item 2 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the last meeting. Hope you've all had a chance to look at those and read them. Can I ask whether you can confirm that the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of February 2020 are a true record? Do you all agree? Okay, I'm taking that as everybody. Is that enough for us, Rhiannon, to sign off? Yep.
Yep.
Thank you. And then now, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please?
Yes, Sarah, I've got one. Rodney Chambers. Page 242, GPF spend relating to the historic dockyard Chatham, of which I am a trustee. Although I do not have a financial interest, as a trustee, of course, I do have an interest. And as I don't have a pecuniary interest, I will stay but not vote at the meeting.
Thank you. I have a couple of interests to declare. One is that my husband has been commissioned by 2 university research centres, the Centre for Arts and Wellbeing at the University of Brighton and the Sydney DeHaan Research Centre for Arts and Health at Canterbury Christ Church University, which is in supporting a discovery process into the underpinnings of relationship between creativity, everyday creativity and health. It's not related to the medical school, so I have been advised that I don't need to step out at the meeting on this point, but obviously I don't vote anyway. And also in terms of the Secretariat budget, I do receive an honorarium, as you know. I have also been advised by Essex County Council that I don't need to step out of the discussion because it doesn't count as a pecuniary interest. But if Suzanne, Rhiannon, if you could confirm what the situation on that is, please, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, we have Charlotte, who's from Essex Legal Services, on the call. Charlotte, are you able just to come in and confirm that for Sarah, please?
Yeah, Sarah, I can confirm what you've just said. So the conflict policy sets out that because it's paid by CELEP, that it's not a disclosable pecuniary interest.
Thank you very much. Are there any other declarations of interest? No? Okay, thank you. Item 4 on the agenda, public questions. We haven't received any public questions. So let's move on swiftly to LGF Capital Programme report. But just before I hand over to Rhiannon on that, I'd just like to confirm the incredibly good news, in case you don't know, that an LGF4 of up to 85 million has been agreed. And as you know, there was a request at incredibly short notice to send through projects. And I'd particularly like to note that CELEP, of all of the LEPs across the country, has received the highest, by far the highest award. So I do think this is a moment for celebration and also a real acknowledgement of all of the work that the officers of CELEP and the officers of the local authorities have undertaken to get us to this point. Adam and the team, Rhiannon, all of you, thank you so much, and Suzanne in particular, who I know spent hours on the spreadsheets. Thank you very, very much for all of your work. It's really good news. I think it's a really good reflection of all that we as a team at CELEP are doing. So, and thank you all to you all for enabling that to happen. And then, so with regard to the LGF project, new projects that you have in front of you, we discussed the way that we wanted to handle that at the Informal Accountability Board, and then we were at the Strategic Board, we were given clear recommendations outlined on page 21 of the board papers of how we should handle that. But I'm going to hand over now to Adam, Rhiannon, to take us to say a bit more.
Yeah, just a few words on that then, Sarah, from me. I think the way that we've set it out in the papers is the way we need to have the discussion today, with everything that was discussed at the last strategic board and obviously the informal accountability board as well, in terms of identifying primary charges, etc. I suppose the encouraging news that we've had this week, albeit it's been informal, is that the recommendation from CLGU to Treasury is that we do receive the final third, and that's the recommendation that officials have made. So we need to still push forward in the way that we'd planned, obviously, because that's not official and that decision has not yet been made by Treasury. But the rather encouraging news is that the recommendation is in support of us getting that final third, and getting the final third within August as well. So we shall obviously, as soon as we get that confirmation, let everybody know instantaneously, I would hope. But obviously at the moment we proceed as previously planned. And just to follow up on the Getting Building Fund, I think it's called, the 85 million, it is absolutely a fantastic result for us. It is great to see a fair allocation, perhaps for the first time. We're all really, really excited about that. Just to be clear, as to where we are, we've taken some guidance from officials over the last couple of days. I've got a meeting with Chris and you, Sarah, and the Federated Area Chairs at 4:15 this afternoon, where we will just agree the way forward, but obviously agreeing that package starts at the Federated Board level, so that'll be a process that we'll just make sure we get right this afternoon, circulate it to colleagues ASAP thereafter.
Thank you, Adam. That's very good news, I hope, and will help in us make quick decisions today. Rhiannon, thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, as Adam set out, I think we proceed as planned. So the capital programme report, it sort of sets out an instruction around the way which we're intending to make funding decisions through today's meeting. So as we agreed at the strategic board meeting, where the funding decisions due to come forward at the moment, we can't overcommit the programme relative to what we've had confirmed by government. So we'll either be making those funding decisions subject to that final third being received from central government, or identifying alternative projects which to accept a charge over. Hopefully the positive news from government, if that is confirmed, it does mean the decisions made today, we can therefore swiftly move to make the sort of make the funding flow to the local areas to support the projects. The government, MHCLG, I think are fairly comfortable with our proposed approach about mitigating our LGF spend during this financial year. So in terms of contractual commitments, we're working with local areas to put service level agreements in place, but government seem fairly comfortable with our definition of that. And we'll also be looking to implement the option for capital swaps, where we're swapping at the end of this financial year any LGF held by CELEP or local partners into local authorities' own capital programmes. So we'll ask this board to agree the exact figures around that in Q4 of this financial year, so later in the year, to know exactly how much is going to be used, applied using that process. What we do want to make sure in advance of transferring all that funding to local authorities is just that confidence around each of the projects to make sure they are deliverable. There are provisions within the service level agreements to recover the funding if the projects can't proceed. But I think, you know, no one really wants to go down that route if we can possibly avoid it. So in the papers, we're suggesting actually, you know, we do take a more detailed look at the projects in October to make sure we're comfortable with, you know, the kind of planned delivery of those projects beyond the go-through period, just to make sure we're comfortable, and then making recommendations in Q4 for that option 4 to be put in place. In terms of the spend position, we have made assumptions that we do receive that final third of funding from central government. So we're currently forecasting the spend of 118.43 million during this financial year. Our slippage has increased, so we're looking at about 49.139 million pounds slippage beyond the growth deal period. So that is a lot of money. Even when we're receiving, you know, assuming that we do receive that final third from central government, I think we just do need to make sure we're making progress on the delivery of the programme, to make sure, you know, reputationally we can demonstrate, you know, we're spending the money appropriately and at pace. The other decision in this report relates to Beaulieu Park. So this project was awarded funding £12 million by the board in February 2019. It was on the basis that a majority of the funding would be spent beyond the growth deal period, but Essex County Council come forward with a request to spend the full £12 million at the end of the beyond the growth deal period, and actually not until 2025-26. This on the basis the project also secured housing infrastructure fund. The overall construction of the project, so it's for railway stations, a large infrastructure project. The construction isn't due to start until April 2023 and last until March 2026. And the project's also secured housing infrastructure fund, which are pressures and time constraints around the spending of that grant. And therefore Essex are requesting that actually the LGF is spent at the end of the programme for the project. And therefore the board is asked to agree that decision to reprofile the LGF until 2025 for the project. The report does also identify some high-risk projects, but I think we're covering that through today's agenda, so I won't comment too much more on those points. Thanks.
Thank you. Any comments, questions from anybody? Councillor Finch. You're on mute. You're on mute. Are you able to come off mute? No. All right, marvellous.
Oh,
Thank
my
you.
goodness.
Sorry about that. My computer seems to have a will of its own. It doesn't seem to realise that I'm in charge, not it is in charge. So I'm still working desperately hard on that. Simply to say that the reason for the slight change in the timescale of the scheme is simply not down to anything that either the City Council or indeed Essex County Council has done. This is a project that is in combination with the railway company, and therefore most of the delay, if any delay, is caused by them and their national rail planning the route to connect to the mainline railway line to Liverpool Street. That's the only reason for the slight pushback in terms of time. I would support the decision. Obviously, this is the critical important